It's a widespread belief that competitiveness is a primary engine for success. And it's right. It provides the initial drive, the push to study, and the fire to improve. However, left unchecked, that engine generates massive friction. If your success becomes tethered to beating the person across from you, you hand it over the remote control to your satisfaction. You're no longer leading the game, and you're out of position before the cards are even dealt. In our last video, we broke down the game theoretical logic of tit for tat and showed how the math of being a good person is actually the math of long-term stability. Today, we'll move from the infrastructure of cooperation to the risk of disintegrating through emotional over-reliance on defeating others. To find a superior way of life, we'll look at three distinct frameworks: the logic of Spinoza, the effortless action of Wu Wei, and the Tao of Non-Contention. Together, these path a way to the sovereign state, where we can transition from the exhausting struggle of the fight to the high fidelity execution of the art. We start with Baruch Spinoza. In the 17th century, Spinoza stripped away the fluff of morality and looked at human behavior through a lens of pure logic and geometry. He argued that every being has a conatus, an innate drive to persist and increase its own power. But he identified a massive trap in how we pursue this power. He distinguishes between active and passive emotion. When we play to beat someone, we are in a state of passive emotion: hate, envy, or even pride. We technically refer to these as passions because we are being acted upon by an external trigger. Our internal state is now a byproduct of our opponent's failure. By making our success contingent on their presence, our strategy becomes a mere reaction. We are no longer the primary cause of our own actions. True excellence is the consequence of active emotions. When we play to express our own logic and creativity, that is when we are governed by active emotions. Spinoza defines these as the joy that comes from understanding and the desire to act according to reason. It is the expansion of our own logic and intuition, independent of the field. When we play from the state, we aren't trying to diminish the person across from us. We are simply perfecting the expression of our own strategy. In this channel's first video, we talked about how fun and joy are not only a luxury, they are a high performance requirement. This Spinozan joy is the philosophical complement to the neuroscience. It is a sign that we are moving from reactive passivity to active mastery. The excessively competitive player is a parasite to the environment. They need the surge of the kill to feel powerful. The sovereign is an autonomous force. They create their own intensity through setting their own internal standards. This isn't just a difference in personality. It's a difference in metabolic cost. When we are obsessed over crushing, beating, and defeating another person, we are no longer executing our own strategy at full capacity. Instead, a significant percentage of our cognitive bandwidth is consumed by external triggers. We have to monitor our opponent's reactions. We have to track their successes, like recent Mob entries, just to calibrate our own sense of power. In the world of high-performance hardware, that's the equivalent of letting a heavy spyware program run while trying to focus on the game. The competitive player feels intense, but that intensity is high friction. Every second spent contending with another opponent's ego is a second lost for game tree calculations and reads of the table. The sovereign understands that active joy is the state of maximum efficiency. When we play to express our own logic and creativity, there is no internal resistance. We're not fighting the hardware because we aren't trying to do anything to our opponents. This is why Spinoza argues that the expansion of logic is joy. It is the feeling of an engine finally running without the heat of external friction. Next, we move to ancient China and the Taoist concept of Wu Wei. It is often translated as non doing, but it doesn't mean passivity. It means effortless action. It is the practice of aligning with the natural flow of a system instead of trying to force it to bend to your will. When we are locked in a fight, we are trying to force the game. We overbluff to prove a point or overfold to protect our ego. We're swimming against the current of actual math because we're obsessed with the outcome. This is where most players get exhausted and burn out. They're trying to control what cannot be controlled. Wu Wei is the state of the integrated player. We stop trying to make things happen and simply allow the highest EV decision to manifest through us. We are responding to the natural flow of the cards and the ranges. The ego, the one who wants to win so desperately, disappears and only the cleanest execution remains. In the state of Wu Wei, we aren't a competitor who wants to conquer the table. We are a master of flow, executing our strategy with the least amount of internal resistance. In the West, we often mistake effort for quality. We think that if we don't sweat and grind our teeth, we aren't working hard enough. But in the concept of Wu Wei, effort is actually seen as friction. Think of a professional athlete, a basketball player, for example. When they're in the zone, they aren't trying to aim the ball. They have simply become the vessel for the physics of the shot. They have removed the ego blockage that can stand between the intent and the basket. In poker, strategic friction happens the moment you try to force a certain outcome. When you decide, I'm never gonna let this guy bluff me again, you just introduced a massive drag into your decision-making machine. You're no longer calculating the optimal response to his bet sizing. You're trying to bend the river to your will. This competitive resistance creates a lag in processing speed. While the sovereign player is instantly determining the best counter strategy, the competitive player is stuck in a three-way conversation between the math, their ego, and their emotions. Practicing Wu Wei is the strategic decision to stop being the bottleneck in your own game. It is the realization that the most powerful move you can make is to stop resisting the reality of the cards and start flowing into the gaps that your opponents leave open. This is not about giving up. This is about becoming the low resistance superconductor for the logic of the game. You're simply getting out of the way of your own expertise. Finally, we look at Lao Tzu's concept of non-contention. He famously argued that the best fighter is never angry and the best winner is the one who wins without competing. In a world obsessed with alpha dominance, this is the ultimate strategic pivot. Most competitive players are trapped in a cycle of contention. They want to be the toughest at the table. They engage in unnecessary leveling wars and ego-driven confrontations. By being so visible and so aggressive, they become a known variable, a target that others can calculate and exploit. When we practice non-contention, we refuse entering the ego game. We don't have to show the table who's boss. And because we're not blindsided by the need to dominate, we are the ones who have the clear, unclouded view of the game tree. We remain invisible and unpredictable and win because we stay true to the game. When we stop contending, we stop leaking information and energy. This is the way we transition from a loud competitor to a quiet, unstoppable force of nature. In tactical terms, contention is a leak. When we're trying to out-alpha others, trying to be the smartest, the toughest, the strongest person at the table or the room, we are casting a massive information shadow. In intelligence and surveillance, every signal that we send out can be used to map our location and intent. In poker, this competitive signature is one of those signals. When we stare someone down or make a statement play just to prove a point, we are leaking high fidelity data about our emotional state. We are giving the table the information they need to know exactly how to push our buttons to get us off our strategy. By practicing non contention, we effectively shrink that information shadow to zero. Because we aren't trying to be anyone at the table, our opponents have no ego to latch onto. We become a ghost in their decision making process. Think of it as the difference between a tank and a stealth aircraft. A tank is loud and powerful, but its position is always known. A stealth aircraft achieves its objective because it doesn't even trigger the radar in the first place. The competitive player wants to be feared, but in seeking that fear, they become a known variable. The sovereign player chooses to remain invisible. We aren't winning without fighting because we're weak or we're passive. We are winning because we've removed ourselves as a target. We leave our opponents swinging at shadows while we execute with clinical, uninterrupted precision. This shift from the loud competitor to the quiet force of nature is the final piece of the puzzle. We've looked at Spinoza to reclaim our emotional autonomy. We've looked at Wu Wei to find our effortless execution. And finally, we've looked at non-contention to vanish from our opponent's radar. But these aren't three tactics to just win more pots. They are three pillars to something much more profound: the transformation into neural integration. When we stop fighting the table, we finally have the bandwidth to stop fighting ourselves. Most players are in a constant state of neural civil war. Their minds know the math of the game, but their ego-driven emotions are craving for a different result. This internal conflict is an energy leak. That's the reason why sometimes after playing a session, we might feel exhausted even if we haven't played many complex pots. The sovereign is simply the player who has ended the internal civil war. When we combine autonomy, flow, and invisibility, we stop being a reactive player. We become an integrated system where intuition, intellect, and emotions finally speak the same language. We stop being someone who needs the win to feel powerful, and we start being someone whose internal alignment makes the win inevitable. The obsession with competition is a trap. It forces us into a state of permanent friction where our egos are always on the line. It tethers our performance, and for some of us, that means our happiness and satisfaction, to things we can't control: the deck, the variance, and the fragile egos of strangers. This path is different. We aren't playing to dominate the person that's sitting across from us. We're playing to achieve total internal alignment. When we operate from that center, using Spinozan logic to protect our energy, the flow of Wu Wei to remove our bottlenecks, and the Tao of Non-Contention to hide our signals, success stops being something we chase, and it starts being the natural byproduct of our execution. Let's not settle for being the best competitor at the table. That's a small and exhausting game. Let us be more. Let us be the ones who are truly excellent and truly free.